Good evening, students. Today I am teaching you non-tariff barriers. Non-tariff barriers are obstacles to imports other than tariffs. Types of non-tariff barriers. First one, import quotas. Import quotas create a direct effect in reducing imports from abroad. Quotas are fixed for 1 year. These are definite limits imposed upon the physical quantity of import goods. Import quotas are classified as follows. First one, tariff quotas. Under this system, an initial fixed quantity of import is allowed either tariff-free or at low rate of tariff, and all imports in excess of this specified quantity are imposed at a higher rate of tariff. Second one, unilateral quotas. When a country fixes a quota means a limit upon imports from abroad without any earlier agreement, without any prior agreement, is known as unilateral quotas. It is an allocation of the global quota among different countries. Quota means limit upon imports from abroad, from foreign countries. Third one, import licensing. An import license is a document issued by a national government allowing the importation of certain goods into its territory, into its area. The licensing system helped to stop the wasteful use of foreign exchange, as the license holders will get necessary foreign exchange from the government. Thus, licensing system can bring more equality, more stability and regularity in import business. Fourth one, bilateral quotas. Under this system, quotas are set through the agreement between the exporting country and importing country. It will reduce the undesirable or bad effects like excess supply. Excess supply means more supply than the demand. If the supply is more, then there will be wastage of resources and monopoly in trade, etc. So these are the 4 types of quotas. First one, import quotas, and it is divided into 4 types: tariff quotas, unilateral quotas, import licensing and bilateral quotas. Now, what are the objectives of import quotas? First point, it is used to correct disequilibrium in the balance of payment. Second, limiting import quotas help to protect foreign exchange reserves. Third, it can be used to stop the import of non-essential commodities from abroad. Fourth, it can remove the element of uncertainties in trade. Fifth, it can use to distribute scarce resources equally among needy nations. Sixth, quota system provides protection to the domestic industries by controlling what? By controlling imports and by encouraging export. So these are the 6 points of or 6 objectives of import quotas. Quota means limit. Next is the effects of quotas. First one, price effect. Quotas will increase the price of imported goods to a higher level. When quotas are imposed, the price of imported commodities will increase. The supply of foreign goods beyond the specified quantity becomes perfectly inelastic, and therefore change in the price of the imported commodity will be decided by the domestic demand and supply conditions in the importing country. Domestic means our own. The price effect can be seen from the diagram given below. In this diagram, DD is the demand curve of importing commodity and SS is the supply curve of importing commodity. E is the original equilibrium point where DD and SS, demand curve and supply curves, are intersecting. Before the imposition of quota, the quantity imported is OQ and the price is OP. But after the imposition of quota, the imported commodity is decreasing from OQ to OQ1 and the price level is increasing from OP to OP1. After the imposition of quota, the quantity imported is reducing from OQ to OQ1, this much. And the price is increasing from OP to OP1. So previously the price was OP before the imposition of quota. Equilibrium point is E. The demand and supply curves are intersecting at point E and the quantity imported was OQ. But after the imposition of quotas, what happened to the quantity imported? It is reduced from OQ to OQ1 and the price is increased from OP to OP1. New equilibrium point is E1. We can say new equilibrium point is E1, but only one demand curve and supply curve are showing. And thus we can say the price effect is P1 after the imposition of quota. Next one, terms of trade effect. Terms of trade effect can be well explained through the above diagram. According to this diagram, country A can fix import quota either at point E1 or at point E2. Either at point E1 or at point E2, and OQ is the quantity of export. Here OQ is there, but in the textbook Q is not there. Okay, you have to write in your notes Q. So OQ is the quantity of exports and there are 2 points E1 and E2. In this diagram, country A can fix import quota either at E1 or at E2. Selection of E1 or E2 depends upon the elasticities of demand and supply. If the terms of trade are fixed at point E1, then they will be more favorable to country A since it will have to sacrifice only QE1. We can see in the diagram QE1, this much QE1, in order to get OQ quantity of exports from country B. But at point E2, if the terms of trade are fixed at point E2, then they will be unfavorable to country A. Because at this point E2, in order to get OQ quantity of exports, they have to sacrifice, country A have to sacrifice QE2 quantity of its own commodity, and QE2 is greater than QE1. QE2 is much larger than QE1. That is the terms of trade effect. See, again, I am reading terms of trade effects can be well explained through the above diagram. According to this diagram, country A can fix import quota either at point E1 or at E2. Selection of E1 or E2 depends upon the elasticity of demand and supply. If the terms of trade are fixed at point E1, then they will be more favorable to country A, since it will have to sacrifice only QE1 quantity of its own commodity. Q is here. QE1 quantity of its own commodity to get OQ quantity of exports from country B. Q is here, OQ quantity of exports from country B. If the terms of trade are fixed at point E2, then they will be unfavorable to country A because it will have to sacrifice QE2 in order to get OQ quantity of exports from country B. Now the next one, balance of payment effect. Quotas like tariffs have restrictive effect on imports. Restrictive means controlling effect. The balance of payments gets corrected in favor of the country resorting to quota fixation. It will reduce imports and deficit in the balance of payment. So the imposition of quota and tariff is the government is imposing quotas and tariff for controlling imports and to conserve foreign exchange. Thank you, students.